and keepsakes. Over 70 years under various communist dictators, the Soviet people have known limitations beyond the five senses. And after a sufficient number of imprisonments and beatings, the yearnings of man for the beyond had to be dulled to almost nothing. Yet the democratic awakenings of the past few years suggest there was life in the old place yet. The poets always said so. Yevtushenko and Vozhensensky said so. Sharansky and Sakharov said so too. Still, it was hard to believe. Surely Russians, children by nature, would always seek a thumb to be under when push came to shove or push came to Gorbachev. That did not happen this time. This time, the people surprised everyone, including, most likely, themselves. What may be most impressive about their outburst is that it occurred within a collapsing social structure. Because in a collapsing social structure, people usually grab for any form of order. The coup makers offered a most recognizable form of order, yet they were turned away. Maybe the Russians are not only enjoying their first taste of democracy, but are learning how chaotic by nature democracy is. If they should achieve it, their lives will never be orderly again. They will be tested by a continuum of race wars and class wars and free speech arguments and all the other forms of strife that Americans know too well. Yet they will be free within the strife. And more amazing still, the strife will make them freer. If the Soviet people have picked up that essential fact of democracy, the creative disorderliness of the system, they are on their way to making it their own. The people, yes, said Sandberg, holding his breath, of course. The old anvil laughs at many broken hammers. There are men who can't be bought. The fireborn are at home in fire. The stars make no noise. You can't hinder the wind from blowing. Time is a great teacher. Who can live without hope? In the darkness, with a great bundle of grief, the people march. In the night, and overhead a shovel of stars for keeps, the people march. Where to? What next?
Good evening. As the Soviet Union continues to splinter today, President Bush interrupted his main vacation to make a phone call. He spoke with Lithuania's president and strongly hinted he is ready to grant the Baltics full diplomatic recognition as free states after more than half a century as captive nations. NBC's chief White House correspondent John Cochran is with the president in Kennebunkport.
Where'd Chevy go, eh, man?
President Bush has taken some hints from members of Congress whose home districts are well stocked with Baltic Americans. So Bush is grateful to Lithuania's President Landsbergis, who refused to join critics accusing Bush of foot-dragging on recognizing Baltic independence. Today, Bush all but told Landsbergis that the U.S. will grant diplomatic recognition on Monday.
Yeah, I said that we would probably have something to say on Monday that would be of great interest to the people there. You heard his comments, which I thought have been extraordinarily well reasoned over the last few days. I mean, look, time isn't all that important. We know where the United States stands.
Bush feels he can no longer delay recognition, but he had hoped that the Soviet parliament would first make independence clear-cut for the Baltics. Bush did not want to add to the chaos in the Soviet Union or to the problems of Mikhail Gorbachev. Today, National Security Advisor Brent Scowcroft said if the CIA had known in advance about the coup against Gorbachev, the U.S. would probably have warned him. But now, Gorbachev looks like a loser.
In the Baltics today, the iron fist of Soviet domination, the Black Beret commandos who'd repressed independence movements through murder and military assault, were being driven out. NBC's Dennis Murphy is in Vilnius tonight.
The Soviets pulled their hated Black Beret commandos out of Latvia this morning. In the Baltics, they were regarded as thugs and murderers. The Black Berets are believed to have killed 6 Lithuanian border guards a month ago. After the coup, 84 commandos holed up in the Soviet barracks here in Vilnius. There was unexplained gunfire and explosions overnight here at the barracks. The commander of the Black Berets had been trying to negotiate their asylum. Some of them may face murder charges here. This morning, 47 of the Black Berets were put on buses and flown out of the country. Now the Lithuanian government is demanding that the 90,000 Soviet troops here get out too. President Vytautas Landsbergis told me Soviet withdrawal must begin by the end of the year.
I have said the Soviet troops in Lithuania.
Soviet troops must leave.
In general.
Number one priority.
Yes. And they must, to begin, go out.
Diplomats, meanwhile, are pouring in. The Swedes opened their embassy. U.S. Senator Larry Pressler paid a courtesy call.
It's not an aid check, but it's something from the United States Senate.
Lithuania issues its own visas now, and at the Parliament building, still protected by tank barricades, a volunteer defense force is learning to march like a real army, though their weapons are billy clubs and vintage hunting rifles. So historic as the week has been, celebration is muted. At a cathedral mass today in this mostly Catholic country, there was reason enough to be sorrowful for decades of hardship and anxious about a very difficult future. Dennis Murphy, NBC News, Vilnius, Lithuania.
The Soviet Union is disintegrating so rapidly, it'd be easier to tell you what's left.
President Bush finally did it today. He recognized officially the Baltics as free, independent states.
And the World Watch, the United States has always supported the independence of the Baltic states and is now prepared immediately to establish diplomatic relations with their governments. The United States is also prepared to do whatever it can to assist in the completion of the current process of making Baltic independence a factual reality.
But from the Baltic American community, criticism for Bush's delayed response.
If you're asking me as an American citizen, then I have to say that I'm a little disappointed that it took so long.
New York's Senator D'Amato was one of several in Congress who had urged Bush to grant recognition last week.
So I can understand the president's reluctance. I think we could have done more in time gone past to put pressure on Gorbachev and others to get rid of the Black Beret who were terrorizing people.
President Bush's plans for helping the new Baltic nations, well, some food and medical help, yes. Some technical assistance, yes. A big cash payout, no. Tom?
Thank you, John. With or without the president's recognition, the Baltics have been taking a fiercely independent course in recent years. That's especially true of Lithuania, which was a David to the Soviet Goliath. NBC's Dennis Murphy tonight in the Lithuanian capital.
U.S. recognition came and went without flags or hurrahs. Vilnius just went home from work.
Seeing the Baltic states.
The Lithuanian government got the news on TV. President Landsbergis didn't take the call from Bush. He left hours earlier for Budapest to sign a recognition treaty with Hungary.
It will be the complete and the greatest possible protection against every possible new aggression.
It was left to his vice president to give the official response.
And I feel that we can now consider the struggle for our independence to have been, in essence, won.
It was a struggle that came with 13 deaths at the TV station when Soviets shot their way in January. Perhaps a turning point mistake for Moscow.